Awesome. Well, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining the first installment of our Made Summer web series. We're very excited to have you all join us. Our hope is really for you guys to all continue learning this summer by hearing directly from industry professionals, people who are living and breathing this stuff on a daily basis. So a couple of things before we get started. You all will be muted throughout just to eliminate any kind of background noise. If you do have a question, feel free to pop it in the chat box and Mike will address it either as they come up or at breaks or after the presentation is over. So we'll let him moderate that. And yeah, so I think I'll just introduce Mike. He is our first guest, which is amazing. Thank you for being number one. He's my friend and colleague at the Association of National Advertisers, which is the largest trade association for marketers in the country. So without further ado, I'll let Mike take it away. He'll tell you a little bit more about himself and the future of marketing.
All right. Thank you very much, Sarah. Much appreciated. Guys, thank you for showing out like this. This is really excited. Really glad to get to, kick it with you for the next hour and talk a little bit about what we're seeing about the different trends and like emerging areas that are changing literally the entire game of marketing. So let's just jump on in. I'm going to hopefully, yeah, there we go. Sharing this screen with everyone. Perfect. We love that that happened on the first take. Let's see if I can't get this into, all right. Okay. As Sarah said, my name is Mike Berberich. I'm the Senior Director of A&A's Content Department. So what we do is the A&A puts on literally, well, under normal circumstances, we put on normally around 500 events every year. And at those events, leading marketers will come and actually tell their story. Like, this is why the problem we had, this is the case we developed, and this is how it worked out. So my team, I have an amazing team of 6 content creators, take all of that information and turn it into all of like resources, articles, listicles, how-to guides, anything conceivably that a marketer might need to make better decisions, to, advance their own career. And, we're there to help in any way we can. So, a few years ago, it's actually 2016, the CEO of the A&A came to us in the content department and said, look, we're well known, we're tried and trusted and true, but we're not innovative. We're not future facing. So my boss, Kathleen Hunter, and I were kind of tasked to creating something that was just dedicated to the future of marketing. And so after years of research and talking to people way smarter than I am, we came up with the Marketing Futures program. So that consists of a few kind of really key pillars, and one is our digital hub. So that's ana.net/marketingfutures. I'm going to hit you with that later on, so don't worry about it at the moment. But so yeah, so we are educating marketers on the future of marketing in a number of different ways. We create an entire suite of reports and infographics, CMO trend briefs, things to really get people up to speed on what this is, why I should care about it, is this for me, and if so, how do I get started in there? The nice thing is all of this is available to each and every one of you, so I will definitely remind you of the URL before we're all done here, because these resources are free and open for each and every one of you, and hopefully can kind of help you get a better grasp on how this entire marketing landscape is evolving. We have a monthly Pulse blog because we know that things change so quickly. Not everything can get a nice designed up report. Obviously, you see what the topic of the month is. The A&A right now is trying to support brands and marketers who are just dumped into this new reality without any prep time. And while the organization is really focusing on what's going on right now and what we can do right now, we're marketing futures. So we have to take a look at what might be on the other side of this. So that's really what our Pulse blog is for. It's really to give you the latest and greatest on stuff that's happening right now. And finally, the Marketing Futures podcast. This allows us to bring our network of incredibly smart, incredibly innovative people to you. You know, a lot of times somebody might have a niche expertise that might not, you know, need an entire report, but they have some unique perspective to share on the industry and where it's headed and how to get there. There are some really cool things. We spoke with some esports celebrities about gaming. We talked to the chief innovation officer at a cannabis brand who's operating essentially 6 different companies in 6 different states. There's a lot of stuff in there, so we'd recommend, it's anywhere you stream podcasts. Highly recommend you check that out. All right, so let's just jump into it now that you know who I am and why in goodness' name it's me talking to you. We want to cover, last year Marketing Futures added 6 new areas of focus to our program. Just checking in to make sure we don't have any chat so far. Okay, I think we're good. I don't know how I'm going to toggle with that, but we're gonna figure it out. But anyway, these are the 6 areas where we really saw that they were either currently disrupting the market or they were on the horizon and ready to really change everything. So those 6 topics are voice marketing, direct-to-consumer, corporate venture capital, future of B2B, that's like the entire kind of area, the perspective and how that's evolving, 5G, which will take every disruption that we've seen so far and make it look like nothing. And finally, the future of work, which is super relevant right now, and we will discuss why very shortly. So let's jump in to voice marketing. Now, I'm sure most to all of you are familiar with smart speakers like Alexa and virtual assistants like Siri, but this platform is, it harnesses the capabilities of AI-powered natural language processing technology embedded within these devices. So now this is voice search. You know, Alexa, what's, you know, how old is Robert De Niro? It's, you know, the virtual assistant, Siri, you know, set a lunch date for next Wednesday at 12. And yeah, and so those are basically the 2 primary functions of voice marketing and, you know, voice-enabled devices. But for kind of as simple a thing as it accomplishes, this really disrupts how marketers were looking at one of their most important channels up to date, and that channel is search. You know, Google came out, it changed the way that we think about things and find information. It essentially did away with like 95% of curiosity. If you want to know something, put it on Google and you'll know it. But what Google did and still does is if you Google laundry detergent, they will give you 6, 7, 23, 87 pages of results. Now, those results will be in order of relevance. They've got their complicated algorithm that's trying to give you the most relevant result up top. Now, when voice is purely end-to-end voice search, Alexa's not going to list 87 results for laundry detergent. Alexa's going to list 1, maybe 2, but probably 1. And so that 1 result that you get from asking Alexa to search for laundry detergent is known as position 0. This means if you are number 2, if you've done everything, if you are the Pepsi to the Coke in your category on a virtual voice-powered search, you don't exist. And a former Amazon executive said as much when they were quoted as, when it comes to voice search, you go first position or you go home, because beyond first or second position, there is no future. So, we finally thought we landed search engine optimization. We got it in there. We were good on tagging. And now the entire game just got flipped on its head. And that's something marketers are growing more and more accustomed to as time goes on. Going to move on to direct to consumer. This is probably a good time to bring that up. Hold on, I think we're getting a chat. All right.
Yeah, Mike, do you want me to let you know when we get the questions in?
Zoom actually popped up and gave me a little notification. So
Okay.
I think we're going to be good.
Okay, great.
So Clarissa asks, are other languages taken into account when it comes into voice marketing? Do accents or vocal tics come into play? That's an incredibly good question. And the answer is yes, to varying degrees. It's really funny that you asked that specific question, because last week I had the opportunity to speak with an advertising agency in New Zealand. And New Zealand has a week where they recognize the Maori language. It's an indigenous language to New Zealand. And they created an AI program where you basically pointed your camera at an object and it would tell you what the Maori word for that object was, which great. But they also instilled a feedback loop. So where people who were native speakers can actually provide feedback. Yes, that is one word, but in my region, we call it this. And so through machine learning, through another facet of AI, it just gets smarter and smarter and better and better. So you can bet something like Alexa is being trained in every possible way of vocal communication, because this is, we want personalization everywhere we find it. And so if I speak with a drawl, or, if I'm from Pittsburgh and I like to call Yinzal Yinzal, that is something that I expect my devices and platforms, especially the ones who want to do business with me, to pick up and understand and respect. So we've got another question from Tanvi. Do you think voice marketing is being used on a very large scale? Do most people have access to it? That is a really, really, really great question. You are a bunch of smart people. So here's what it is. Voice marketing right now is not being used on a massive scale. If you're a pretty big brand right now, what you're doing is you are playing around creating a skill. That's what they call Alexa programs. You create a voice skill. Let's say, this is an actual example. Jack Daniels is creating an Alexa voice skill that's basically a virtual bartender. Hey, Alexa, give me some fun Jack Daniels cocktails. That's not going to give you a generic search result. That's going to activate the Jack Daniels Alexa skill. And so you'll get, perhaps a different voice as the narrator. You will get a specific list of things that you can kind of interact with that platform for. So the reason why it's not big now is exactly your second point. A lot of people don't have access to it. But by 2022, there is the prediction that there's going to be $40 billion in purchases of virtual voice devices, and they're going to penetrate 55% of US homes. What brands are doing right now are preparing for the tipping point, because, much like TV, it started where it was in the house of very well-to-do people or people who were up on the latest gadgets. But in a very, very short amount of time, it went from the thing that keeping up with the Joneses, oh, wow, we're all going to go watch the TV on Friday night, to a thing that was in every single home and was a collective language. There was a beer, and it still exists, called Schlitz Brewing, and they owned radio, and they just did radio better than anybody. TV came along and they're like, not interested. TV's this newfangled thing. It's not going to last. We don't need it. We're going to stick to radio. So this tiny little brewing company went into that white space, started creating television commercials. And within about 2 years, that tiny little brewing company by the name of Anheuser-Busch was the #1 beer company in America. Schlitz Brewing is now a little, side thing. It's barely a company anymore. It went from #1 to near obscurity in 24 months based on a new platform. That is what we are looking at right now in voice. Somebody is not going to be ready for it, and it is going to basically just drop them on their head, for lack of a better word. All right, we're going back. So you know what? This is absolutely amazing. So if we want to kind of like dive in on voice and maybe just get a couple of these, this is your webinar. So these questions are incredible. So just keep them coming. If I need to cut other stuff, I'm mostly boring. So this is good. Me answering you is probably the best use of everybody's time. Oh, yes. Oh, my goodness. Yes. Meredith, to your point, nobody's nailed this. Absolutely not. People are trying to. They're trying to get there. But voice adds nuance that text did not. You can, even misspellings or, dropping the G, working instead of working. Those are pretty easy problems to fix. But, when it comes to the individuality of people's voice, that is a vastly larger ocean. So the one nice thing for voice devices is that since they're powered by AI and since they have that machine learning facet to them, just by existing and the passage of time, they're getting better at it. But yeah, absolutely. We're going to get the bias about voice devices. If we've got to cut a lot of stuff, we're still going to get to the bias in AI. So that's really why Alexa's having so many problems. And we're going to go into that and why it goes way beyond just voice search in this webinar. So excellent point, Meredith. Thank you. Brittany, will Alexa or other devices ever recognize accents? I know it struggles with the Southern accent. I think somebody asked a pretty similar question to this before, and I was just talking about it eventually. As the tech increases, the AI gets better. As the AI gets better, it learns quicker. As it learns quicker, it's able to spit those learnings back out into these devices. But it definitely will still take time, because it's not hit that tipping point. The second voice search becomes as ubiquitous as this, you will see money come from every corner of the advertising space pouring into making voice as perfect as it possibly can be. All right, from Ritika, I hope I didn't destroy your name there, and apologies if I did. How does Alexa choose that one product? Is it based on an algorithm, or would businesses buy space in voice marketing as well? You guys should be running this webinar, not me. These are brilliant questions. So the special sauce of Alexa is not known to the outside world. I can tell you right now, it is not a sponsorship play. That is, you cannot just be the richest laundry detergent and pay Amazon to make you position 0 and then call it a day. That's just not how it works, because Amazon doesn't care about any particular brand. Amazon wants to give you the absolute best experience you can. So if it knows something's the highest rated, if it's got the most reviews, if it's the best price, if it can go out into the internet and confirm that on other spaces, it brings all of that and probably a lot more that I don't know about into its algorithm to give you the best result possible. And that in and of itself is a change in the marketing world over the past 10 or 15 years. That, to the most part, benefits consumers, and it makes marketing a lot tougher. Amazon wants to create the best platform to buy things possible. So if you're an incredible company who does incredible customer service and makes an incredible product, it is in their interest to get you out in front, because if you buy that product through Amazon and love that product, guess what's connected to that emotional connection to that product? Amazon. Not only do you love the product, but it got there, no muss, no fuss, overnight, 2 days, probably not right now, but you know, back in the long ago, in how things used to be and hopefully will again, you know, that really creates brand affinity. So long story short, the product is chosen by an algorithm and it's hoping to get the best result for you all. Oops, that wasn't what I meant to do in the least bit. Okay, so speaking of disruptive emerging trends, direct-to-consumer is a very interesting thing. It's not necessarily new. You know, people have been, you know, anything that's operated with a catalog has been direct to consumer in some way, shape, or form. So this isn't necessarily a new concept, but the idea that a brand can exist exclusively in direct to consumer, that it can cut out all of the middlemen, all of the retailers, all of the Amazon.com, you know, that it affords both the brand and the buyer a lot of advantages. So the buyer is no longer paying for the retail upmark for Amazon's cut of this product. So you can make a lower price and still hit the margins you need to have a business that stays open. Second, you can just establish a one-to-one relationship with a brand. You know, things like Birchbox, things that, you know, where you get some clothing items, you can decide what you like and what you don't, you send back what you don't, and only pay for what you keep. I don't have one of those subscription services, so I don't know the exact details, but I know that that's essentially how it works. What that's doing is marking everything you like, which is tagged up and down in their database. Oh, that's a fun, that's light clothing, that's bright colors, that's button down, that's, you know, this fabric. They're creating a profile so that hopefully over time, those boxes just get fuller and fuller of stuff that you love, that you want, so that you pay for all of it. So the reason that this is a major area of Marketing Future's interest is less in, although the brands themselves are a great inspiration, not only for marketing, but for branding, and especially for consumer insights and customer relationships. These are shining examples for big brands to take a look at. But the other thing is, these tiny brands are working with such great margins and spending so little money to get their brand out there that they're competing with global companies and winning. It's not a news story, but it is my favorite D2C story, so we're going to talk about it anyway. Apologies. Dollar Shave Club. So what we know, everybody probably knows at least a little bit something about Dollar Shave Club. Silly YouTube videos. I think there was like you're walking a bear or a lion or something like that. But essentially, you sign up, you get enough razors for the month. The month ends, you get new razors. It's cheaper than if you went to, you know, the pharmacy and picked them up there. That's it. That's the simplest idea. You could do that with a million different items. But why did they do it in the way they did it? Well, they saw a category, men's shaving, that had no innovations for decades, right? They would, you know, the biggest thing that they've done in the last 20 years were occasionally add 2 extra razors on their like bonus boxes. So when you see a vertical, a category that is so stagnant, there's a pretty good chance that somewhere in there, there's a consumer want not being met. And if you can meet it, you can do a lot of damage very quickly. So Dollar Shave Club comes out. They recognize the white space involved. You know, I never remember to get my razors one razor ahead, so I'm always scruffy walking in there and never looks good. They're expensive as hell. Why are they so expensive? They're these little plastic things. Those two questions, those two problems were the only things that Dollar Shave Club had to solve. And 18 months after that company launched, it was purchased by Unilever, which is a global conglomerate which, you know, owns companies like Gillette, that are these massive shave brands. They bought Dollar Shave Club for $1 billion 18 months after the first silly YouTube video was launched. So for something that could seem so small and so whatever, $1 billion from Gillette just so they could take a competitor out of the market. So that is kind of, if you're not thinking in these ways, if you're not hopping onto these trends, that's the peril. You know what I mean? Netflix started as direct to consumer, if you all remember. It was a DVD delivery and return service before it was ever a streaming platform. Incidentally, Blockbuster could have purchased Netflix for something like $10 million and decided to pass on it. If anybody's young enough, Blockbuster is where we all used to go rent movies. It was a brick and mortar retail space, and you went there and you picked it up and you put it. That doesn't exist anymore. But just know that there was an alternative reality where Blockbuster was the streaming service that brought you Stranger Things. So we're going to go back to the chat room. So with direct-to-consumer services increasing, do you think we will ever see big box, brick and mortar, or department store retailers see a decline in sales or cease to exist completely? You guys are making this so much more interesting than it was ever going to be, and I really appreciate the teamwork on this. So it's very interesting. The retail apocalypse was a thing that existed and was talked quite a bit about in 2017 and 2018. We thought, oh my goodness, e-commerce is eating up all the retailers. It doesn't make any sense to have any space anymore. It's just overhead. Go digital, go digital, go digital. And that was all based on like a 5% dip or like a spike in closings. It might have been more dramatic than 5%, but when you actually look at those numbers, it was a very, very tiny amount of types of retail stores that were taking the hit. Apparel stores, department stores like JCPenney and Sears. Those type of stores are, they're suffering because they used to kind of be a catch-all, like, come here, we got what you need. People want more specific to exactly what they want, so there's less appeal in those stores. However, the majority of retail actually hasn't been seeing that many declines relative to e-commerce. E-commerce is soaring. It's obviously going to become more and more and more of every business's revenue stream. But this idea that retail locations are going somewhere probably isn't going to happen in our lifetimes. What is going to happen is how brands, or what is going to change is how brands use their retail stores. I recommend to all of you, we've got a great report on the future of retail that delves into this. We're actually, I just reviewed our 2020 edition 2 days ago. So in the next week or so, there's going to be an even fresher report on the future of retail, but that's still only about 6 or 8 months old, the one that exists on Marketing Futures right now. And it talks a lot about retail as theater. So now, because e-commerce is happening and buy online, pick up in store is a very big thing, because the whole buying process doesn't happen within the store anymore, the store then becomes an opportunity to build a brand. You take a look at the Nike store in Times Square, and there's like a kind of shrine to Serena and Venus Williams in there. There's a make your own Nike kicks spot, and it's really just bringing their brand to life and making you really excited about the Nike brand. And it's almost like a Nike theme park, and you walk away just getting this really, emotional connections that you might not initially even notice are there between you and that brand. So I think that any brick and mortar retailer that isn't furiously trying to improve their e-commerce, they're in for a lot of trouble. I think that you could see department stores become a thing of the past, where it's only things like Walmart, which are literally everything. I mean, if you can give somebody the same place they can buy car tires and eggs, then yeah, there is some convenience in that e-commerce can't necessarily deliver. So yeah, so the share of digital sales are going to go up, but retail isn't going anywhere in brick and mortar. It's going to change how it operates a little bit. And now especially, I mean, I'm talking kind of taking most of the things that we're going through right now out of the equation. And speaking in more general terms, brick and mortar is going to look very interesting over the next 2 years. And I don't know, I don't think anybody knows what that's going to look exactly like. So we'll see. There might be a third wave of the retail apocalypse yet due to all of this social distancing and quarantining from COVID-19. But that is really, that's something we're all going to have to stick around and find out to see how it kind of progresses. I want to take a pause here. I know we're 30 minutes in. We've been doing a lot of Q&A, so do you guys think I should just keep on keeping on for a little bit, cover a few more topics, and then we'll call it a day? Cool. Oh, we got some chats. Hold on here. Yes, please. You got it, Jessica. Cover more. Okay. All right, guys, back off. No, I'm kidding. So corporate venture capital is interesting, but not as interesting to me. So I'm going to go really quickly over this. You're a big brand. It's really, really hard to innovate internally. If you want to do something new, 40 people need to sign off on it. You need to find money for it. It can be a very painful process. So a lot of brands are doing this thing where they're creating venture capital funds, literally just a separate company that has connections back to the brand that lives out in the Silicon Valley in California and works with startups in a way that your typical venture firm works with them. They'll meet with them, they'll, try to become an investor on the early thing. But instead of a regular venture capitalist who was like, I want to, help you fund your app. I want to spin this up and I want to sell it to Facebook for $1 billion. We'll all collect our money and I'm on to the next one. What brands are looking to do are get smart on these emerging trends before they hit the market. Imagine if Blockbuster had a venture firm in streaming media. It would have understood how much of a game changer it was and could have taken those learnings and maybe even some of those partners they've invested in and created their own streaming platform. So you're going to see more and more brands get into this area. 3M has a huge corporate venture capital firm. Google is obviously one of the biggest players now in the venture game, period. Apple, IBM, Intel, these companies are already in this space, and you're going to see more and more, even places like P&G where it's like consumer packaged goods, you're going to see them out there investing in startups and trying to really catch lightning in a bottle, as it's happening. So that's corporate venture capital. Future of B2B. This is another one where it's interesting, but not as interesting as some of the other topics. So I'm going to go a little bit quick. Me going quick doesn't mean that you can't ask questions, by the way. So if you do have a question, hit me up. I will stop and we'll chat about it. But essentially, the story with B2B marketing forever and a day has been B2B marketing is slow and it's informational and you just got to list the features of your product and that's it. That's B2B marketing. You're educating decision makers that are going to make these big purchases. Just as a kind of slight reference, B2B is business to business marketing. So if I sell jet airline engines to airline companies, I have a B2B business. I'm not selling to individual consumers as if I were Wrigley's Gum. Wrigley's Gum is B2C, business to consumer. I will buy a pack of Wrigley's Gum. I will not buy a airplane engine. That is for a company to buy. So, and obviously with an airplane engine, you need to know different things than a pack of gum about purchasing. So that's just that's what B2B is in, as opposed to B2C. I probably don't need to tell any of you any of that, but just in case. So B2B, always the boring ones. B2C, always the creative, inspiring Super Bowl ads. Look how fun we are. But when it comes down to it, 95% of the decisions you will ever make in your life, it doesn't matter about what, are emotional decisions. So B2B marketers have got to step up their game with emotionally resonating with people. They're still people. Computers aren't making these purchase decisions. There are people. And to prove that out, this is one of my favorite studies. It's 6 or 7 years old, but it's still pretty interesting. So there was a study in Germany that looked at the purchase decisions made by buying center members, these are these decision makers, in mechanical engineering. So these are German mechanical engineers. Not to be stereotypical, but if there's anybody more like logic, and these are, we're going to buy this, and I'm going to look at all the things and add it up and make a decision, that's a pretty good group to go ask. So they asked them about how they make decisions. So almost 8 in 10 decision makers indicated that they disregarded emotions when making purchase decisions. Disregarded it completely. 70% claimed to rely only on objective facts. So that's 77% no emotional whatsoever. 70% only objective facts. Then 54% of them also said that they would let a deal fall through if they had a bad feeling about it. So for even the people who think themselves that they're making non-emotional decisions, those people are making emotional decisions. So the future of B2B really is opening up what marketing can be, and it just means that marketing at B2B brands is going to get a lot more fun, a lot more creative, and a lot more innovative. So that's what the future of B2B holds for one and all as far as marketing futures is concerned. Oh yeah, now we're at another one of my favorite trends. And this one's interesting because I know almost nothing about it. Nobody does. 5G is, it'd be easy to mistake 5G as just faster internet. And in a way of thinking, that's it. It's just faster internet. But how much faster? And what are the implications? That is what's really, really, really exciting to me. This is the thing that I said earlier was going to be the most disruptive thing marketers have seen in our lifetime. And I think I would include the internet with that to really not to put too fine a point of it. But I've had this explained to me by a much smarter person, so I'm going to share their words with you because I think that it's just a great way of summing this up and helping you think about how transformative this is going to be and what new challenges marketers are going to be faced with. So to understand what 5G is going to bring to the world, you kind of have to understand what 4G brought to the world. It's a great way to, you look at history to see how the future will unroll. So 4G first came out. We couldn't fathom what it was going to enable. Can you imagine Netflix without 4G? Can you imagine Uber without 4G? Well, the people who created and conceptualized Netflix and Uber, they couldn't conceive of it before 4G either. It's not like Uber had this idea of like, ooh, we're going to make, we're going to connect phones to taxi cabs and then you can just, it's just going to be this floating cloud of people getting places. They weren't just sitting waiting for better internet. They couldn't conceptualize of a world that would allow them to do that before 4G hit the thing. You couldn't just conceive of streaming so good that you could watch a 2-hour movie and make it not be torturous. That was the difference between 3G and 4G. Now, 5G is going to have 100 times the speed and processing capability of 4G. So from a world where streaming was absolutely torturous and the best computers couldn't do more than a half an hour to everybody's phone being able to do that and then some. That was 3G to 4G. 4G to 5G means that the internet's going to become ubiquitous. It's going to be air. In 5 years from now, there are going to be so few places in the US and really on the planet Earth where 5G can't be picked up. So let's go to our callers here on the chat board, see what we're all thinking about this. Oh, I'm sorry, Estelle, I did not catch the B2B question in time, but we're going to go right there right now. In making B2B purchase decisions, does the emotional aspect translate if there are multiple people involved in making the final call? Y'all are incredible. Yes, indeed. And various people need various things. So for a B2B company, they've got an advantage over B2C in that they know who their customers and their potential customers are. If I sell airline engines, I don't have to guess about who might be in the market for airplane engines. Pardon me. I know exactly. I could look them up on LinkedIn. I could have a list. We're good. So because people know that, you can look and see, okay, so typically there's your IT manager. So what's your IT manager concerned with? Well, concerned with cost, concerned with, can we integrate this into our system? Can this, is this going to scale easily for the whole company? Do I need to worry about changes in 5 years, in 2 years, in 3 months? The person using that thing is worried about, is this user friendly? Is this going to look nice if I need to put out a report with it? Is this something that is going to offer cool features? So as a B2B brand, you need to be in the places where IT professionals are looking and consuming media with all of the things they need to be reassured about. And you need to be in the spaces where, let's say, your brand marketer managers are, and you need to be conveying all of your cool features and how drag and drop simple your software platform is, for example. So yeah, you really do need to consider that last final decision. Who's around that table? What are they worried about? And you have to craft messaging specifically for them, because it can't be everything. You can't have both of those messages smooshed into one and just send it out everywhere where people might be on the internet, because that's going to look terrible. It's just bad marketing. So B2B is sneaky complicated when you start to look under the hood. From Kendall, since B2B marketers have to step up their game with making emotionally resonating decisions, but often are too objective, do you think that the soft skills required to make these decisions are innate, or that marketers can be trained to do this? Like this is amazing. I think if you guys let me on next year, I'm going to put a word up and let you guys ask questions about it, because you're all incredible. So soft skills, and this is going to come in our very next slide. So kind of just slam dunking it right here. Marketers are more and more hiring for those soft skills, because they're finding out that it's a lot easier to train you on, oh, this is our media buying platform, or, oh, this is how we put in tickets to our, in-house agency. Those are the easy things to train. What's hard to train is stepping outside the box when you're not asked to. What's hard to train is seeing something that might be a signal and communicating it out to a group of people and having a lot of different perspectives on, so it comes back with an insight, from a hunch to an actual insight. Innovation in general is so much more about soft skills than it is about technical knowledge. We're probably not going to get to it because it's it's more general, and I really love this conversation we're all having, but the practice of innovation is about culture first. Tech is not the first thing you think about when you want to have an innovative company rather. You need a culture of people who are comfortable sharing their ideas with somebody who's like 3 levels above them, if they're really passionate about that. Facebook, you don't think about Facebook as a B2B company, but it's purely B2B. There is not one aspect about Facebook that is B2C. You don't pay for anything for Facebook. The advertisers, the companies that want to reach you, pay Facebook. So Facebook's a purely B2B company, but their culture almost mandates that if you have a problem, you have to cause so much of a stink that it gets solved. So this person was in their they were being onboarded. This was day 2, and they heard this. They're like, Zuckerberg wants to hear everything you think is wrong with Facebook. And this person just was like, we're losing young people. This thing Snapchat is killing us with this thing's stories, and we need to get something. This person on their second day went to their boss and was like, we need to be on this 24-hour ephemeral disappearing content. If we don't do this and we don't do this now, we are going to become obsolete within the next year. Within 2 weeks, that person, now on day 15 of their employment with Facebook, were sitting on a one-on-one meeting with Mark Zuckerberg, and eventually became one of the heads on integrating Facebook and Instagram stories onto the Facebook and Instagram platforms. This person might have saved Facebook on their second day at work, because this wasn't an idea, more or less, good artists borrow, great artists steal. The idea to just take stories and slap it on our platform too wasn't being floated around for some reason. So, but all of that is to say, that's not just that person. Yeah, kudos to that person for having incredible soft skills, incredible conviction. But Facebook, you have to build that culture where that boss knows if he says, get out of here, go learn how to fill your schedule for the week or whatever. Don't you have an HR onboarding to get out of here with this? If that was the culture at Facebook, who knows where Facebook would be right now? So that is, it's one little anecdote, but imagine the work that you have to do to convince even your newest and most entry-level employees that they can and that they must bring things to the very top of your organization. It takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of work, and it takes a lot of actually authenticity of wanting to make this work. You cannot give lip service to innovation. You just can't. Everybody will see through that almost immediately. So we've got only one more trend to cover before I kind of give you my little wrap up and pitch you marketing futures. Because again, most of the stuff that I've been talking to you about has come straight from the Marketing Futures Hub. And there's just so much more to explore there. So on to the future of work, or as now it's known, our current situation. So obviously a big part of this is remote work and the idea of a team and what bringing people together and what collaboration means in an age where, digital platforms and ever increasing speeds of internet are making a lot of things possible. Where in, just logistical issues that forced brands to do this or that don't exist anymore. And rarely does the case for getting ahead of an emerging trend, such as the future of work, ever present itself so clearly like it has over the past 6 weeks. We released this report in Q4 of 2019, where it was highlighting a lot of brands that were really leaning into this remote working, just this new paradigm. They were leaning into it. They were training people up on it. They were investing in platforms. They were taking it seriously, because aside from everything that's happening right now, there are innate advantages. If there's a company that is going to be a future guest on the Marketing Futures podcast called Design Pickle, and they're just a design company. They do everything from, if any of you wanted to have a logo for your business, you could probably pop on and get one for like $50. But also they work with Under Armour to create brand new, product designs and everything. So they're kind of a full-scale design firm. And from the beginning, the founder realized, well, if I like this person's portfolio, but they live in the UK and I live in Arizona, why should I hire this person who I'm less excited about that lives 10 miles away from me? So he made the decision on day one to make it a purely mobile company. And so now they're up to 500 companies or 500 employees worldwide, all working remotely except for a very small handful that worked at a headquarters in Arizona. Now, when COVID-19 hit the US and shelter in place orders started popping up all over the country, all over the world, a lot of companies were left scrambling. They were left unprepared. They were left with some free Zoom accounts that, were kicking everybody off 40 minutes into meetings. They were just really having to adapt to everything all at once, where a company that got ahead of that curve and leaned into all of the advantages inherent in remote working, well, Design Pickle, day one of these, of this crisis, it could focus on being there for its employees. It could focus on crafting messaging that, we have your resources. If you have questions, please bring it to this person. They got to immediately make sure that everybody felt comfortable and that their employees felt like they were protected, which in this uncertain time, what does that do when everything opens back up? Is the company that, the first thing that they were able to do was immediately start addressing your needs? Is that somewhere you want to stick around? Or is it the company that for a week couldn't figure out how to get two people on a FaceTime, and so everything was just completely up in the air and frustrating? So yeah, the future of work was interesting already, but now it has been brought to the fore in a way that we absolutely could not have predicted. But it shows us exactly why we're doing the work that we're doing for, in marketing futures. Thankfully, these resources were there and ready. So if you were one of those companies who was caught unawares on day one, but you knew about marketing futures and you were kind of up on what we were offering, there was a guide waiting for people who knew about it. So I think since we've got 5 minutes, I'm gonna cut it there. There were a few things that we didn't get to cover, but that's woo. Sorry, I went too quick. But I did just want to say that this was a whole lot of fun. I loved hearing all of the questions from you, and I will continue to any questions you have on the chat. I will answer every one of them before we're done here. But if something comes up after this, reach out to me. This is my email. Jot it down. I'd love to hear your questions. You guys are a very smart group of folks. These were incredibly insightful questions. And if you have more, I would love to, and any way I can, help out. I've said it a few times before, but it's worth repeating one last time. Everything, I'd say 90% of the offerings on the Marketing Futures Hub are available to you free of charge. So head over to ana.net/marketingfutures with an S and take a look. And if you do and you like it or you hate it, let me know that too. This doesn't work without working with people. We can't talk to ourselves. That is a big no-no in marketing. So anything that you see that can be made better, anything that you're wondering, why aren't you doing this when we should be, help us build a better marketing futures, guys, because you guys are the future. So when you are all running Fortune 500 brands, we want to be making sure that your needs are met. So do it now before you're too busy with meetings all day.